All right, everyone, it's 12 o'clock and many of you have already dialed in, so we're going to just go ahead and get started. I'm Romy Newman. I'm the co-founder of Fairy God Boss, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk to Jen Fisher, who has the remarkable title of Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte. I think we could all use a little Chief Wellbeing Officer in our lives. So Jen, we're really excited to hear and learn more about you and the work you're doing today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
So tell us, what is a well-being officer?
So a well-being officer, primarily I'm in charge of setting the strategy and running the programs, developing the resources and the tools that help to create a well-being culture within Deloitte and really empower our people to take advantage of these tools and resources and build well-being into their everyday lives, regardless of how they work or where they live or what their family looks like, but really empowering them to take care of themselves so they can show up at work and in life at their best every day.
Well, that sounds incredible. So it leads me to many more questions, though. So can you define well-being? Because it's unusual for an employer to even really care about its employees' well-being. And so what does that mean to you and to Deloitte?
Yeah, absolutely. So how we define well-being at Deloitte is it's holistic health and well-being, and it's body, mind, and purpose. So it's whole purpose well-being. Body, I think, is probably the most obvious to people, but it's all of the things around your physical health, exercise, nutrition, but also things throughout the day, and making sure that you build in proper rest and recovery into your day, making sure that you are planning and taking vacation appropriately and getting time to disconnect from work. And then also a topic that I'm really, really passionate about is sleep. And so making sure that you know what the appropriate amounts of sleep are and that you're building that into your day as well. The mind component is all aspects of mental and emotional health and well-being, as well as being able to do things in your day and your week that allow you to be creative and play to your strengths and do the things that really kind of energize you and allow you to use your mind and to use your brain. And then purpose, we really describe as what's your why? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you do the things that you do? And are the decisions that you're making on a daily basis, but also large scale in your life about your career, getting you closer to where you want to be, to your goals, and to kind of ultimately what matters most to you in your life.
That is incredible. And so many questions still to ask, but before I do, could you tell us a little bit about you personally and how did you end up in this role?
Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting story. I've been with Deloitte 18 years, and well-being is something that, quite frankly, I've always been passionate about in my own life. But when I went to school, I wanted to study exercise physiology, but my mother was a teacher and my father was an accountant, and they didn't really know what exercise physiologists did. They thought that, I was a personal trainer for the rest of my life. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with that? So I studying business, and I also in exercise physiology. And so this role at Deloitte's actually kind of brought both of my worlds together. But I started it in a marketing role, and I spent many years doing that. And then I moved into a different role. I was the chief of staff for one of our senior executives. And after I came out of that role, I went back into our marketing organization. And at that time in my life, I was kind of at a pause. I mean, I was quite frankly, I was pretty burnt out. I'd been going at it hard for a long time. I hadn't really been employing well-being into my life other than making sure that I got to the gym for an hour a day. I wasn't doing all of the other things that really bring well-being into your life. And I was at a place where I kind of had to step back and, question what I wanted to do next. And so I have some incredible mentors and bosses at the organization. And I think it really boiled down to, I was really passionate about this thing called well-being. But I at the time didn't know if, this was something that the firm would do. I mean, I kind of felt like, to your reaction, there aren't a lot of organizations that do this or that, care about the well-being of their people in the way that we are at Deloitte now. And so I had a conversation with my mentor and I said, this is what I really want to do, but I'm afraid that I'm going to have to leave the firm. And she said, well, why? I don't understand. And I said, well, we're not well-being people. I mean, it's not what we do. It's not our business. We're accountants and consultants. And that was fine. I got that. And she looked at me and she said, Jen, if you need this in your life, why doesn't everybody else need it in their life? Yeah. And it was kind of that pivotal moment where I said, yeah, you know what, you're right. And so I put together a business case and I talked to a bunch of leaders, and our chief talent officer now, Mike Preston, he was coming into the role, and I sat down and I talked with him and I said, what do you think? Will you give me a chance? And he was really supportive of the idea. It really believes in it, as well as all of our senior leadership. They've been incredibly supportive. So we've been on this journey about 3.5 years. But that's really kind of, in a nutshell, at 100,000 feet, my story and how we and I, it's kind of a personal journey that turned into part of my career journey as well.
I love it. And I see we're already starting to get some questions, which I love. And I encourage you all to please use either the chat or the Q&A function to contribute questions. But I'm going to ask a few more questions first, and then we'll ask the rest of you to give us more questions. I have so many questions for Jen. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
First of all, incredible story about how you not only did you combine your passion with your work and also kind of elevate the employee value of your company by creating this role, but you made the case for it. You went to bat and created the case, and there's so many lessons there. And I love the courage that you showed, and also it's I think the lesson to many of our listeners is probably things you may not think are possible are totally possible, and there's no reason at least not to try, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge lesson for me, and it pushed me outside of my norm. And if I hadn't had my mentor say to me, why not? I probably never would have done anything with it. And so it was that pivotal moment that really I was like, yeah, you know what? She's right. Why not?
Yeah, I love it. So what's your job? What do you do every day? Literally, what's a day in the life?
Well, that's a bit of a tricky question because it depends on where I do travel a lot because I speak to lots of groups internally and externally. So, if I'm home, I do spend a good majority of my day on conference calls, as you would expect. But, it's a series of things. It's really working with the various businesses and Deloitte to talk about and implement well-being strategies that work for them and their people. We have four different businesses, and our people work in a multitude of different ways. We have people that, spend a lot of time on the road at client sites. We have people that spend, their days in a local office. We have lots of virtual workers as well. And we really have to think how to meet people where they are, and what each of the well-being needs are of the people that work and kind of live in these different realms of work and life. And so working with each one of the businesses to kind of develop those strategies and programs and really help them, implement those types of things. And, it can be anywhere from a mindfulness and meditation program to, we have a really successful program around kind of managing your personal energy and what that looks like in the 4 dimensions of energy to really help you show up at your best every day. In May, we're starting to launch a big campaign and program around mental health in the workplace and how important that is in the workplace and in life, and kind of mental health first aid programs and things like that. So it's a lot of learning and education. It's, really understanding the needs of the different businesses and the needs of our workers. We're kind of ever evolving, right? Because our people are ever evolving in their life. And you want to be there with them throughout their life journey, and wherever that takes them, whether, they're getting married or buying a house or having a kid or, changing roles. The goal is to really be there with them and for them, and kind of have strategies and resources in place that they can take advantage of.
I love it. So, for our listeners that don't have the benefit of having a chief wellness officer or having an employer-sponsored wellness program, what would you say if someone was said to you, I'm a working mother and I feel like my days are packed and I can't get to the gym and I don't feel like I've got the whole work-life balance thing down. How do you start? What advice would you give?
So I would say, focus on things, right? We talk about them as micro behaviors. And so, when you paint this big picture that you have just painted, it often feels daunting and scary, and you're not able to kind of overcome it, right? Because there's just so many things coming at you at one time. And so I always tell people, pick some micro behaviors. What are some things that that no matter what, you can set some boundaries, accomplish, during your day? So is it, getting up in the morning and making sure that the first thing that you don't do is check your phone and your email, but instead, have some coffee, sit by the window, nature, maybe it's journal, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. But I always tell people that when you roll over and and you pick up your phone and you look at your email, somebody else is actually driving your day and all of the things that then flow from that point. But you want to get up and start your day with intention, right? And so is that something that you can do, that you can take 15, maybe get up 15 minutes earlier, or for the kids do for a few minutes. I have a lot of friends who, get up in the morning and, that's kind of their meditation or mindfulness time. Can you take a walking meeting during the day? Instead of standing or sitting in front of your computer, actually standing in front of your computer is a great thing that you can do. But can you take a walking meeting? So grab your phone, put your headset on, and, go for a walk down the street, down the block, or down the hallway, or around this, just to get some movement and day. Is there something that you can plan to do before bed, or if you're driving home from work, instead of getting frustrated in traffic, can you use that time for, reflection, or, listening to kind of calming music as a way to prepare yourself to walk through the door and really, even if it's just for a little while, kind of disconnect from what happened during the day and really give your full and best attention to those at home that really deserve it. So I think there's a whole bunch of things that you could think about doing, anywhere from 2 minutes of deep breathing to 15 minutes of engaging with your spouse, engaging with your children, or 5 minutes of writing in a gratitude journal or some other journal reflections of your day. So I think it's about picking small behaviors and micro behaviors that you can accomplish, so that way you feel like you have a sense of accomplishment. You can add on from there, right? And so it doesn't need to be, I'm going to train to run a marathon. It can be something small that just gives you a sense of peace and calm and joy that that you can accomplish. And once you kind of have built that habit into your day, then you can add on more.
I love that, because so many of us are also driven by this feeling of accomplishment.
Yep.
And when you don't make it to the gym day after day, you feel bad. But if you give yourself something you can accomplish, it helps you feel good. That's
exactly.
Great. So there are a lot of misconceptions around work-life balance, and especially things like working remotely that exist today. Why do you advocate for remote work? And can you help us all many of us are hoping to have more time working remotely. How can you make the case for it?
Yeah. So, I think every organization is different. And so I can't speak for what other organizations do and what their culture is like. But, for us at Deloitte, remote work, virtual work, flexible work, is something that we have adopted. And it's something that makes a lot of sense for us. I talked about before how, we have people that work in different ways. We have people that, are on the road at client sites out of town. We have people that are in town and at client sites. We have people in the office, and then we have people that work 100% virtually. And so it's really, allowing people to kind of have the choice outside of, we are in a client service business. So we do need to show up and be there for our clients and provide service. But, outside of that, giving people the choice to work, we call it when, where, and how they need to, is really meaningful to our people. And they've told us that. And so we've adapted, and we've kind of adopted this flexible work environment really for all of our workers, to kind of determine this for themselves, and what makes the most sense for them given what they need to accomplish for that day. I mean, sometimes it is incredibly important to be in the office and have face-to-face time with the people that you're working with, or to be at your client site. And so you have to make those smart decisions. I think that there is, I think there's room for both, right? I think that you absolutely need to design and work environments where people can come in to the office or into a location and work together, because that's absolutely needed sometimes. But then there's other times and other cases where, people can make the choice and want to have the choice to, work remotely from home, just because there's other things that, they want to get done during their day, and that allows them the flexibility to do that. And so I think it's a rhythm. I don't want to say a balance, but it's a rhythm of kind of all of those things. We have Deloitte University, which is our corporate training facility in Dallas, Texas, or just outside of Dallas, Texas, in Westlake. And the one of the sole reasons for building Deloitte University is to really bring people together in this learning and leadership development environment where they can engage and socialize and network with one another. And so we do realize the importance of having people together face to face, but it doesn't need to be all day, every day into an office or a client site and all sitting together, because there's different types of work, and people want that flexibility. And so we just heard that a lot from our people, and we've kind of adapted our environment and our culture to allow for that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we've certainly found that the more people feel they just have some control. Absolutely. Right? I have to be here today, but today I can be home, and there's some give and take. It makes all the difference. Yeah. I know when I can get to the dentist.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of research. I mean, on both sides, right? But I kind of look that does say that, giving people this choice and allowing them the flexibility to work from home when it's appropriate does lead to greater productivity and engagement of employees. And so, but I do think you're right. That sense of control, especially when it comes to your well-being, is really, really important.
Yes. So you mentioned Deloitte's culture. Tell us more about the culture. Define it for us. What is your favorite part? What makes it unique?
Well, of course, my favorite part is well-being. But really, about our talent culture, and it really promotes kind of the development and well-being of our people. And so we do have a very strong development culture. It's a learning culture. And then we obviously have a culture where it's kind of foundationally based on the well-being of our people. We're a client service business. All we have is the brain power of our people. We face off with the marketplace. We serve our clients. And if our people aren't developing and taking care of themselves, then we're kind of lagging behind, right, in the market. And so those are the critical components of our culture. Obviously, inclusion is incredibly important to us. Actually, well-being for us sits in inclusion. It's one of the tenets of our inclusive culture, because well-being is something that means something to everyone. We might all have definitions of it, and it might change throughout our career journey in our life, but it is certainly something that allows somebody to show up at work like they can be their authentic selves and kind of, talk about what's important to them and their well-being. And so we tie it very closely with inclusion. And so I think those are kind of the key components, I would say: inclusion, development, well-being. But I think, kind of the most unique thing about our culture, and it relates really closely to my story, is that we really do have an entrepreneurial, or what I would call an entrepreneurial culture. I mean, we're a huge organization, 80,000 people in the US. I mean, it's basically like a city. And it, but at the same time, I talk to people, and I'm mentoring people and coaching people. I mean, if there's something that you're passionate about and you have a good idea and it's good for the organization and it's good for our people, and you go talk to a leader and say, I want to try this and I want to do this. I mean, you're going to get support. And so I think that's really cool and kind of really critical, because it allows people to, do their job, but also bring their passions to work with them if it doesn't already exist in the day-to-day work that they're doing.
Yeah, I really love that. We've got some more questions coming in. Please, everyone, feel free to start contributing questions. And while you do, I'm going to ask Jen just a few more from me. This is the question I hate getting more than anything, and yet here I am giving it to you. Tell us about a mistake you made along the way, and what did you learn from it?
So I did mention briefly in my opening story that I found myself in a situation several years ago where I had completely got burnout, and I mean, to the point where, I woke up one day and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get up. I couldn't go. I couldn't show up.
That doesn't sound like a lot of well-being.
It does. And so, and I think that I was trying to be everything to everyone and forgetting about myself in the process. And so, I wanted to be the best employee. I wanted to be the best spouse. I wanted to be the best and best friend and, your best, right? And so I was for everyone, at least I thought I wasn't, but I wasn't showing up for myself. And so I like to talk about it and, I mean, that was certainly a mistake because I gave too much and I didn't set those boundaries. And in the end, it didn't benefit anyone because I wasn't a best at anything. I wasn't showing up really for anyone. And I certainly wasn't taking care of myself. And so now when I talk about it, I say, have the courage to do less, and so we don't have to do everything all the time right now. Over time we can do everything, we can figure out a way to make it work, but you don't have to be everything to everyone right now. And so have the courage to do less and always know that, self-care isn't selfish. You have to take care of yourself to have a sustainable career and a sustainable life. And you shouldn't sacrifice having a meaningful career for having a life. You should be able to have both. And you just have to, I mean, it's a delicate game and a delicate balance, but it can be done and you have to figure out what works for you, but it requires kind of self-awareness and reflection and setting those boundaries and sticking to those boundaries even when it's really hard.
Yeah. Like ruthless prioritization, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I heard someone recently say something that I thought was so just dead on, that, we don't live in a manufacturing economy anymore, right? Where it's not about how many widgets you put out and therefore more hours means more of work means more widgets. It's about ideas. We're in a service digital idea economy. And the more, working longer doesn't lead to better ideas ever. Right. So the more you can step away and get perspective, the more you've got to offer.
Yeah. And I'm passionate about, we're talking a lot about the future of work and AI and, our CEO talks about it as cobotting, so working with robot colleagues. But I think, for me, what is really interesting in all of the future of work and kind of how the future of work is going to change is, the things that make us uniquely human, which are creativity, empathy, require us to take care of ourselves. I mean, you can't be creative. You can't be, consistently and sustainable if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not looking after your well-being, and if you're not encouraging the well-being and creating a culture of well-being for the people that work for you.
Which effectively is the business case, right? For your job, right? Because if people are not taking care of themselves, they're not giving their best work to Deloitte.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Some questions from the team. This is from a tough cookie. Ready? So what are your objectives and how is your work measured as the Chief Wellbeing Officer?
Yeah. So, I think I've talked about a lot of the objectives. I think the the overall goal, which maybe I shouldn't say out loud, is that, well-being becomes such a embedded part of the Deloitte culture and kind of how we do work, how we go to market, how we serve our clients, how we treat each other, that there isn't a need for someone like me because it's just inherent in who we are. Right. And so that's a huge goal. Right. But, the kind of the annual objectives is really how much further can we embed this into our culture and how do we meet people where they are? And, can I walk up to anyone in any office and say, tell me what well-being means at Deloitte? What does it mean for you? What are the resources? What are the tools that Deloitte has available for you? And have, every person know that that's what, know what well-being is and know what they can take advantage of. And, in an 80,000 person organization, that's hard. Culture, this is a culture change for us, and culture change takes time. And it's hard. And, you know, in terms of how we measure it, we do have an annual talent survey where we ask several questions about well-being and our well-being culture, and, you know, the support that people feel from their managers and their teams and things like that, and the level of stress that they're experiencing in their job. And so we're able to kind of see year over year changes in that, and we adjust based on kind of what the feedback from our people is. But I will tell you that our people aren't shy. They're regularly feedback, which is great. Regularly giving us feedback about what they need, and what matters to them. And so, you know, that's awesome for someone like me, because it gives me direction and kind of, you know, you can't do everything. And so you have to make decisions about the programs and the tools and the resources and where you're going to spend money. And so to be constantly getting feedback, we always, you know, try to make sure that we're making the right investments that matter the most to our people. And those do change and evolve over time.
Tell us a little bit more about the business case you must have had to make to advocate for this role. And for someone else who's listening, this is a question from our listeners. And please, if you have questions, please contribute them. But what's the business case here? And perhaps without giving too much away, because I imagine this is a real competitive advantage for you, right? I mean, this is a proposition you offer that other employers don't, and it's a reason that people should want to work there. But so if someone else wants to initiate something similar, how do they advocate for it? What's the business case?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, the business case is, you know, as I said before, we're a professional services organization. But I think this rings true for any organization, regardless of professional services or products or whatever it is. I mean, you want your people to show up at their best every day. You want them to be engaged. You want them to be productive. You want them to be, you know, loyal and not leaving your organization. I mean, the cost of a person leaving an organization, you know, is pretty significant. You have to rehire, you have to retrain, depending on what the role was and the level was of that person. And so, I mean, you know, it's really about, you know, to me, it's good business. And that's really what the business case was. I mean, as an organization, you should care about the people that work for you. And if you care about the people that work for you, then you want to create a culture where they're empowered and they're able to take care of themselves. And you want to provide the things that you can. You know, you may not be able to provide everything, but, you know, at the end of the day, culture comes down to people, and it's the people in the organization that set the culture. I mean, leaders can set the tone from the top, but the people in the organization are what create the culture. And so it's really incumbent upon everyone in the organization to role model well-being and talk about what well-being means to them. You know, but really the business case is, for us, it was, you know, we're a professional services organization. If we don't have our people showing up every day at their best, serving our clients at their best, then, you know, we're not going to have a competitive advantage. And so it was truly kind of a competitive advantage. And I mean, I think more importantly, you know, for our leaders that I worked with, it's the right thing to do. I mean, that's what it came down to. It wasn't about, you know, bottom line, you know, save money here, it's going to be better for the bottom line. It really truly wasn't about the money at the end of the day for us, which was surprising to me. I mean, the level of support that I got, this is the right thing to do for our people. And the time is now. I mean, we're in a really competitive war on talent, and always getting the best talent, and kind of, you know, needing to always be one step ahead. You know, it just came down to kind of, this is the right thing to do because we care about the people who work for us.
Right. Having the best talent and then helping the talent be at their best for your clients, right? Sure. And by the way, so we got not a question here, but just, you have a fan. You have many fans, but a lovely compliment for you was submitted that says that your well-being enhancements and initiatives have made a very caring message, and it really benefits everyone. So you should feel really, really great that the work you're doing matters and it's made a difference.
That's why I get up in the morning. That's my purpose.
The purpose. Yes. So we have a couple questions here that are sort of along the lines of kind of sticking with it or enforcement even at the individual level. How do you create discipline or accountability? So if you think mindfulness is important, or if the company thinks mindfulness is important, people have both the room and the nudge and the reminder to be mindful or be fit or whatever you're encouraging?
Yeah. So, we don't necessarily enforce one thing or another. We have a broad spectrum of different opportunities, different programs, different tools and resources, because we recognize that everybody defines well-being differently. And so I don't want to force you to exercise if you hate exercising. I will probably tell you all the reasons why it's good for you to exercise, but I'm not going to force you to take 10,000 steps a day. I'm not going to force you to meditate if you just think that meditation doesn't work for you. And that's totally fine. And so what we really try to do is make sure that everybody has some stated definition. A lot of our teams have what they call team collective well-being goals. And so either as a team, they have a well-being goal, and it can be around, what do off-hour emails and communications look like? How do we communicate with each other when there's an emergency or a crisis, so that people can take the time to disconnect and do the things that matter to them. But we also have other teams where people, state a personal goal in the well-being realm that they want to achieve. And so then they have accountability from the rest of their team to say, hey, how's it going? You wanted to go to this book club, or you wanted to learn how to, paint or make pottery or run a marathon or whatever it is. But we really try to not kind of force, a certain mission of well-being on everyone, rather just create this culture where everybody feels like they can do what matters most to them. If it's going to your kid's soccer game, that's great. If you don't have kids and, you want to go to acting classes, that's great too. And so it also creates a judgment-free zone, right? Because I think, historically in some cases, sometimes people feel like, if you have kids, it's easier to kind of say, oh, I have to really go to my kids thing. And then the person that doesn't have kids feels like they're the one stuck working, right? And so
Yes.
everybody has their thing that's important to them, and everybody respects that. And a lot of times it is stated, and sometimes people don't state what it is, but we just know that we all have our thing and we should support one another. And that's really where the kind of the culture, where it comes down to culture and kind of cultural norms. And so we try to remove that judgment around what people are doing or not doing.
I love that. The encouragement, it helps probably build a stronger team and build bonds at work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you end up
spend
talking
so much of our life there.
Yeah. And you probably end up talking about you may or may not have talked about or shared before, which, kind of, to your point, creates stronger bonds between people.
I love it. So someone else asked, are there any tools, apps, journals, books that you'd recommend to help hold ourselves accountable or document or engage around our goals, our personal goals?
Yeah, I mean, so a handful of things, and some might be a little bit self-serving, but I do have a podcast. It's called Deloitte. I'm the host of a podcast. And so there's a lot of great episodes out there with a lot of great ideas, from anywhere from nutrition to resilience to setting boundaries around how you use your technology and having good technology hygiene and what that looks like. So I think that's a great place to go to
technology hygiene. Whatever that is, I do not have it.
Most of us don't, including it's an ongoing battle. That's a great place to go get ideas, and we're always adding new episodes. I would say, there's a whole host of apps out there. There's meditation apps. Headspace is a great app. Calm, Buddhify. In terms of books, it just kind of really depends on the topic. Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker is probably, it sits by my bedside. And I think the first line of the book says, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to die early. So, so it's a really compelling book around why we should all be getting more sleep. But there's also, there's so many great tools and resources out there. I think you just kind of have to, most apps kind of have a trial that you can use. There are some, if you want to use a fitness tracker, those all come with an associated app where you can track all kinds of different things from, your steps, nutrition.
You're obsessed with my favorite. It's my favorite possession.
My husband is obsessed with it. Interestingly enough, I think I have fitness tracker, and I don't wear any because I'm just not a tracking kind of person, but it works really well for some people. So again,
and
I
it gives
think
me a sleep report.
yeah, you have to find, you really have to find what works for you. But, if somebody wants some specific recommendations, they can certainly reach out to me on social media if you want recommendations on a specific topic, because I could probably sit here for the next 25 minutes, 30 minutes that we have left and list off those things. But I know we have more questions to get to.
So, but quickly tell us, how do we find your blog? Or your podcast. How do we find your podcast?
So you can go to any podcatcher, and it's Work Well. It's all one word. Otherwise, if you find it that way, it is on the Deloitte.com website. So you could probably put it in your internet browser and type in Work Well by Deloitte, and it'll pop up, and you can also access it through the Deloitte.com website.
Awesome. And then how do we find you on social media?
So on Twitter, I'm at JenFish23. And then on LinkedIn, it's just Jennifer Fisher, probably associated with Deloitte. And on Instagram, I'm JenFish23 as well.
Great. Are we going to see some awesome fitness photos on Instagram?
No, but you'll see me talking about sleep, a lot of traveling, about snacks on the road and healthy snacking. So, but for me, I keep my fitness stuff off of social media because that's my me time. And so I don't have my phone or my electronic devices. I'm not videotaping or taking pictures when I'm working out. I'm actually working out because it's really my time to disconnect.
And are you willing to tell us what your fitness mode of choice is?
So a couple things. I run and intensity interval training, and I also lift weights.
Wow,
so
awesome.
I vary it. Yes.
Very inspirational.
Thank you.
So here's a question. So the question is, what's the link between performance, compensation, and wellness? And I think what's embedded in that question is, how is wellness incorporated as part of your overall compensation and benefits strategy? Or how do we as companies and employers think about creating that to be a part of what an employee perceives as their total rewards package?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, and I think it's one that many, including Deloitte, are still trying to figure out. I mean, obviously, there is a strong link. Science and research shows us there's a strong link between taking care of yourself, your well-being, and stronger sustained performance over time. I think it's different for every organization. I think you have to look at what are the metrics that you look at, and what are the things that you evaluate your people on. I mean, certainly for our leaders, people that lead teams, as part of our performance management process, we have check-ins that happen every 2 weeks or so, and well-being is part of those conversations that team leaders are having with the people that work for them. It's certainly something that for our partners, principals, and managing directors, which are the leadership of the firm, it is part of their performance management and kind of evaluation process. But it's part of kind of the overall, everything that we look at that helps to determine somebody's performance and therefore compensation. So it is part of the conversation. It's something that we definitely look at, but it's part of just the broader, all of the broader things that we look at, in the course of a year over time, in terms of somebody's responsibility and kind of their sphere of influence and the number of people that are working for them. And we also, the other thing that we have, that we more recently have started doing broader in the firm is peer feedback. So loop feedback. 360. So you get it from both your peers, and then, for leaders, you get it from people that that work for you. And well-being is certainly a component of that type of feedback as well. And so it's really all around us as part of the performance management and kind of how we talk about sustainable leadership and compensation over time. But I think, again, it depends on your organization and what what your performance management system looks like and what the metrics are that you measure for people. Certainly, we know that what gets measured gets done, and so if you have the ability to build it into your performance management process, I highly encourage it.
So we have a couple questions here around how you said cultural change is slow and hard. And these are amazing new programs that you have in place. But how do you get them to penetrate through every layer of this huge organization so that each employee can benefit from them? And especially, I think, probably a lot of the work that some of your employees experience, they're on a client site. And it may be harder to communicate to, listen, I got to go take a walk right now. I can't be with you. So how do you take these wonderful principles and ideas you've created and really get them to permeate the everyday of every employee?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I would say from a Deloitte perspective, we're still on the journey. We've seen a lot of success, but do we have it 100% right now? No, we don't, and because this takes a long time, and so I would say you have to create. First of all, I think people need to feel empowered. And this goes back to culture, right? So you can roll out the programs, you can have all the tools, you can have all the resources available to your people. But if they don't feel empowered, if they don't feel like the culture supports them taking advantage of these things or doing these things, then you've basically done nothing. And so I think where organizations start is, okay, what are the things in our culture that are preventing our people from taking care of themselves? And so once you kind of look at those things and then figure out how you're going to address those, then you can determine what the right programs and tools and resources are. I would also say one thing that's really cool for me is, probably on a daily basis, I get an email from one of our employees that's passionate about well-being. So this is a topic that so many people are passionate about. And so we've created an ambassadors network. And so we provide these ambassadors with, training, with tools, with resources so that they can, start to implement these micro behaviors wherever they are. If it's on their team, if it's in their office, if it's at home just for themselves, if it's on their virtual team, but we give them access to training, tools, and resources so that no matter where they are, they can find ways to bring this to life on, in the ways that they're working. And so I think it really comes down to, you got to find the people that are passionate about this, and there's a lot, this feels good for people, so they want to get involved, and you really have to leverage that. And it's going to be different on every team. It's going to be different at every client site. The culture of every office is probably a little bit different. And so having people that are kind of there on the ground as your foot soldiers, as your ambassadors, we call them well-being wizards, that just kind of what you have, and they bring it to life in their own way and in a way that matters for the group of people that they're with. And that's really, really powerful. So it's like grassroots, right?
Right.
That's the most.
Right. It's bottom up and top down.
Yeah, exactly.
So someone here has a question that I think is useful, which is, can you be a little more specific, or could you share an example of a very out of the box program or initiative that you have in place that's part of the overall wellness efforts?
Very out of the box. I don't know that this is, I think, one of the most kind of utilized programs that we have that our people love is our Wellbeing Subsidy. And so we give a match subsidy of $500 per year for each of our employees to spend it on something that matters to them in their well-being. And so again, it spans the body, mind, purpose framework, but it's a whole host of items, services, experiences that they can pick from that supports their well-being. And so I think, I don't know if that's technically out of the box, but that's certainly one of our most popular things that we do.
I love it. You're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would really implementing some of the learning and development programs that we've implemented around, managing your personal energy, around mindfulness and meditation. At first when we started to do those, people were kind of like, what is this? I don't understand. Why are we doing this? And leveraging people that were passionate about the topic, I think really helped those get off of the ground. And now they've become really popular because people feel like these are programs that help them be better people. Like, it helps Jen be a better Jen, right? It's not helping Jen be better at her job or teaching Jen a new technical skill. It's teaching Jen to be a better Jen, right? And so they really feel a sense of investment and kind of empowerment, and that the firm cares about them because we do. And so I think when we first started to roll out all of this stuff, while it was very positively accepted, I think people were a little bit like, oh, why are we doing this and what is it? And so I think a lot of it, quite frankly, feels a little bit kind of out of the box or out of the norm. But certainly I would say Subsidy, or Wellbeing Subsidy, is one of the most popular items that we have.
And tell me about this personal energy piece. What is that?
So managing your personal energy. So, in the business world and in life, quite frankly, we all talk about time management. So we manage what's on our calendar, right? And we know enough time, and you can't change time. You can't create more time for yourself, but what you can do is create more energy for yourself. And so the program looks at personal energy. It's 4 dimensions of energy: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. And you look at, for yourself, what are the things that take away your energy and what are the things that give you energy? And, it's kind of coming up with your own personal plan of making sure that you're managing throughout your day, managing your energy appropriately based on, how your day is scheduled, potentially who you're meeting with, what it is. Me, I'm an introvert, so I don't love to give presentations. I can do it, but I can do it. And I enjoy it. It really drains my energy. So when I'm done speaking all day long, the last thing I want to do is then go to a where I have to continue to talk to people. I rather just go back to my hotel room or wherever I am and relax and chill and, read a book, some hot tea, and so understanding kind of what are the things that give you energy and what are the things that take your energy away, and making sure that when you're planning your day and your week, that there's enough of the things that give you energy and take your energy away in each one of these dimensions, because you can create capacity for more energy, which allows you to then, show up at your best. So, a great example is, you're going back to back to back to back things all day long. You don't eat. You're hyped up on coffee. You drive home from the office. You walk through the families there, and you're crabby and hungry, and they get the worst of you. Whereas if you're more intentional, you plan your day. You make sure you're getting your meals. You make sure you're doing enough things that give you energy, and then on your drive home, you're allowing yourself to kind of decompress and put work behind you for a little bit, a little while before you walk into the door. And then you actually show up as a person, a more energized and more engaged person for your family. So I like to tell that story just because it seems to resonate with a lot of people, but that's really in a nutshell what managing your energy is.
I love it. And somebody asked specifically you talked about rest, resilience, and recovery. Can you talk a little bit about that concept?
Yeah. So, the of resilience, or the definition of resilience, really is kind of your ability to bounce back from, something that is either kind of a failure or perceived failure, something catastrophic that happens in your life, an unexpected death, an illness, a diagnosis, any of those things that are kind of unexpected that happen. Your ability to bounce back, and kind of how well and how quickly you bounce back from that. And so the tie to and kind of rest and recovery, number one, if you're taking care of yourself, if you are well rested in terms of sleep, if you are getting recovery in terms of making sure that you disconnect from the office, that you're taking, your weekends, taking some time on your weekends off to do the things that matter to you, that energize you, that you're taking your vacations, that you're kind of living this rhythm of life, and it's not always this go, 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 work, work, work. You're building a resilience. And so, when or if something unexpected does happen, you technically should be able to kind of back quicker from it, because you've built that resilience muscle over time. It's kind of like going to the gym and doing bicep curls. Over time, the more bicep curls you do, the stronger you're going to get. So rest and recovery is to help build that resilience muscle. Because if you're going at it kind of like I was, and it's nonstop, and something happens and it knocks you down and you're exhausted and burnt out emotionally, mentally, physically, you're not going to be able to recover as quickly from something like that if you're actually kind of taking care of yourself and having building in the proper rest and recovery into your life.
Great. So here's an interesting question. Do you think career advancement or succession planning, career pathing is part of well-being? Are they part of your initiatives?
No, they are not.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then also we have somebody here who is feeling anxious. She wants to get pregnant. She's starting to think about getting pregnant. She's very concerned both about will she be able to get pregnant due to stress, and then also how will she be able to handle a pregnancy? Will she be sick at work, etc.? Any advice to someone who's kind of looking down at that path, looking ahead at that path?
Yeah.
You lost your sound for some reason, Jen. See if you can juggle it a little. No. Can anyone else or others having trouble hearing Jen? Just me? No? Yeah, we can't hear you. Maybe if you take the headphones off. Hello? No. Mm-mm. Oh no, I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave it here. Jen, it's been wonderful talking to you. Give us a smile. Thank you. I don't know why we lost you, but what we can do is definitely, we'll send these questions to Jen to follow up with, and you can reach out. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. She'd love to connect with you. Please find her podcast. Please find her, her on Twitter. And we'd love to get back. And I will just quickly, since we started this question about pregnancy, and it's sort of an area of expertise of ours here at Fairy God Boss, I will just say, first of all, please don't panic. Don't be worried. It will work out. And secondly, someone gave me the best advice when I was just starting to get kind of think about having a family, which is that you can't think of your career, and this is for women and for men and for everybody. It's hard to think of your career as like an endless procession up and up and up and up. And sometimes there are ebbs and flows. And if you're going to make room for a family, make room for a child, maybe you realize that you might lighten the load for a while, and that's okay. And you can still have a very fulfilling, successful, achieving career, but still give yourself room to take care of yourself in the way that you need to. Certainly when you have a child, you'll be amazed the time that you find in your day because you have to. And I always say, before I had my son, I literally used to turn on the lights in my office in the morning, like in my office of 500 people, and turn off the lights on the way out. And at the day, like I always thought, I will always work this way. And then of course, as soon as I had my son, I was like out the door at 5. And I never thought that was how I would feel about it or be about it. But you'll be amazed how you change, how you make time, but just give yourself permission to have some give and take in your career and it doesn't mean you're less dedicated. It doesn't mean you'll be less successful, but I do think that self-care and well-being will be really important through the pregnancy journey. That's my 2 cents. Jen says yes, she agrees. Okay, Jen, thank you so much. Sorry to everyone about the sound issues, but Jen, this has been really wonderful and great engagement from everyone listening. And we've recorded this, so we'll be able to share it. And again, please find Jen Fisher at Deloitte on LinkedIn, or Jen Fish, what was the number? Jen Fish 23 on Twitter. Thanks to everyone. It was great having you with us today. Have a great rest of your day and find time for some self-care today, whatever that looks like for you. Bye.